I want to say a shalom to the bride of the Messiah, a shalom to the 144,000, and a shalom to the nation of Israel. For when you read the whole volume of the book, you will learn about the three groups and the difference between the three groups. Two of them are spiritual, one is carnal still. Two shall we be redeemed from the earth, and the other shall remain in the earth, for they have another part to play. But that is not the subject at hand today. The subject at hand is that when the Father had me to review with you the first new moon report of his new year, of 2019 to 2020, because you know the Father calendar overlap in the heathens calendar known as Satan calendar, aka the Gregorian calendar. He had pointed something out unto me to have you to meditate on. For those who watched that new moon report video that's on the channel, I had typed a message in there in the video description box and in the pinned comment section. Okay. And the meditation that he wanted us to reflect on was, why did the manna cease in the days of Joshua when he brought the people into the land? We're going to go to the scriptures this morning. But why did that manna cease on that day? I'm waiting for my computer to come up. As you can see, I'm having problems as usual. But if not, I have a printout copy and we'll go with that. So you can just see what I'm trying to show you right now to my laptop act right. So in the new moon report, we talked about the first month. And FYI, I put some very important biblical events because the first month represent the day Yahuwah brought Israel into his rest, when he gave them liberty, when he set them free to worship him, okay? When he set them free from Rahab, Egypt, from the dragon, from the Pharaoh. Which brings me to this, for he's reminding me now. Please read the video description box and check the pinned comment section later, for he has some very important announcements. In the video description box or the pinned comment section, Yahuwah has spoken himself. Yahuwah is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That is his name in the Hebrew tongue. He has given instructions to the Israelites, to the 10 lost tribes, and to the bride of the Messiah. Please read that. Also, I added to the list Sister Cassandra, Vision of Heaven. Now, when she was given this divine experience, because she was taken to heaven in spirit, my brothers and sisters, when she was given this divine experience, she was not fully awakened to who she was. So you may see her use certain terms, certain words, but I need for you to get beyond the pettiness and to see the message that the Father is telling you, Israelites and Gentiles. I need for you to do that. Because a lot of us not understanding whom the Father is dealing with. Remember, he said he know who are the wheat and who are the tail. We do not know these things because we cannot see the heart, but he can. So that those who look like us, we think they are wheat, but they are not wheat. And those who do not look like us or talk like us or walk like us or even dress like us, we think they are tares, but they're not tares. See, when you come in the whole writing book, you begin to understand the deeper things, okay, that the Father is looking from us. And the Messiah gave you a hint. Go back and read the gospel. It starts from within. For once it starts from within, then it can be manifest in the physical. A mystery that many do not understand, but let us begin. Okay, so in the first month, we know one of the greatest biblical events that happened this month is that Yahuwah brought Israel into his Sabbath, his rest. Remember, I said the carnal go hand with the spiritual. This is why the Messiah talked about to the Pharisees, do you not rescue your animal out of the pit? So the Most High, so the Most High Himself saved His sheep, Israel, out of the pit. Okay, out of the hands of the dragon from Pharaoh, because Moses saw the invisible one who was in Pharaoh. Read Hebrews chapter 11 and Exodus chapter 12. And also read Ezekiel chapter 28, because you begin to understand who is that hidden one that works behind the scene. Okay, let me see this thing we're at right now. Let's keep going. So in the calendar report, we was talking about the second week of the moon. Okay. And I'm going to pause this for a second, because you definitely want to review those biblical events, because, for example, when the Father tells us to get the lamb on the 10th day, that represents the Messiah when he should start to preach the gospel, that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So when you look from the 10th day to the 14th day, that's when the lamb is sacrificed. That represents what will happen to the Messiah, what he shall do for Adam and the Israelites. A mystery that many do not understand, because you got to go back to the beginning of the book to understand why he had to come. So the lamb was sacrificed on the vid 14th. He was crucified. And on that day, he goes down to the center of the earth, or the heart of the earth, which is known as Sheol. Okay, because he has to go down there and preach unto them for 3 days and 3 nights. And for those who don't understand the mystery of the 3 days and 3 nights, you need to go back and read all the books of the gospel: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay, get us pieces. And you will understand the Most High time, what he counts as 3 days and 3 nights. Again, it's not according to man instructions. A greatest example, look at the time when Moses went on Mount Sinai. For the first day of the 40 days and 40 nights, he went on to Mount Sinai after the morning activities, but it's still counted on a day unto the Father. So go back. That's a mystery of what happened on the vid 14. A day happened within a day. For those who read the whole volume of the book and understand about time unto Yahuwah, it's different. Yahuwah declares what counts and what does not count. Again, we cannot go by man's standards. Okay, so from the 10th day of Evid to the 14th day, when you subtract these two numbers, you get what? 4 days. Now, here's the mystery on the math. We know the Messiah was 33 and a half when he was crucified, and he was 30 when he preached the gospel. The word give you that. 30 from 33 and a half. He is 3 years. It's 3.5 years. If you round that half year up, it happened within 4 years, period. Okay, it also represents what the 2 witnesses shall do, Enoch and Elijah. They shall also prophesy for 3.5 years for those 2 men that has not received an earthly death. Remember, the Bible said that a man can only die once. That come in the whole volume of the book. And there's a book, a sacred book that is written that would confirm about the 2 witnesses as well. But let us keep going. Okay, those who want to know more information about that, you can send me an email to followingthemessiah378@gmail.com, and I can give you the reference source of where you can read that book to get the other piece of the puzzle. And it even talks about Sheol, which aligns with what was written with the work of Josephus and what the Messiah said about Sheol as well when he dealt with Lazarus. Okay. So the Messiah preached for 3.5 years will represent 10 subtract from 14. Again, if you take 3.5 years, round it up, it happened within a 4-year period. Okay. It's just that half year falls in that 4th year. Now we look at Evid 15. That's the 45th day that Moses was dealing with Pharaoh, and 45 represent deliverance when he bring the Israelites out of Egypt. And knows what time they come out of Egypt. They come out of Egypt on the vid 15 at night. That is the first phase of the day. A day is made of night and daylight. Many do not understand this. Okay, but go back and read. You will find the evidence in Deuteronomy 16, Exodus chapter 12, or the whole book of Exodus, and many other scriptures. Okay, remember I told y'all the Most High is constantly talking to us through numbers, through letters, through words, through science, through math. It goes deep. The carnal go in hand with the spiritual. And the 45th day, which is a vid 15, represent his rest. This is why you have Notice here, the Holy Convocation Day to fall on this day. Now, to save time in this video, there are special offerings that we offer on the 15th. Yes, my brothers and sisters, please read Numbers chapter 28 when you have a chance. Read Numbers chapter 28 and you will see those other offerings that we offer on that day. Now, here's the mystery that many do not understand about the Passover offering. They will offer on the 14th, and the other offerings that are offered on the Feast of Unleavened Bread that is held for 7 days after the Passover day. Here's the mystery. If you don't have these offerings, my brothers and sisters, do not worry. Remember, the word has been paid for. Everything is free unto you. Here's the mystery how you can keep Passover, also known as the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is an 8-day feast. How we keep it now is through the new covenant. Because he who abides in us makes us able to keep it perfectly. We can cross every T and dot every I. You are saying, what that means? Well, do you understand who the Messiah is? Is he not the bread offering, which is known as the meat offering? Is he not the sin offering? Is he not the drink offering? What does his blood represent? When you read Deuteronomy 11, it talks about the grapes and the grapes being the represent as blood. So what do his blood represent, my brothers and sisters? The wine offering. Yes, it goes deep. So if you don't have these offerings, you don't have these foods to eat on these holy days, you're covered. Don't worry about it. What the Father wants you to do is get your Bibles and read about these historical days. Get your Bibles and read from the old to the new, because as you see, if you come in the whole writing book, you can see the whole picture and not part of the picture. Okay, so in the 14th, just a quick review. That's when we have the Passover day, and the Messiah kept this day, Christians. Okay, Paul kept this day, Christians. And the 14th starts at sundown. This is why you cannot use Satan calendar or the Gregorian calendar. It's not going to give you the correct day and time, or what you call Easter, Christians. Watch the video on the channel that gives you more information. But to save time, when you look up Easter in the Strong Concordance, it means Passover, Christians. Okay. Then on the 15th, which is the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, this is a Holy Convocation Day. This is a day of rest. And when you look at these scriptures, you have Exodus chapter 12, Leviticus 23, Numbers 28, and also read Joshua chapter 5, verse 11. This is the day where we rest on this day, and we also had a feast on this day. And this is the day when the Messiah was in Sheol. This is day 2. He was in Sheol for another night and daylight. Okay, now let us go to the next page. So reflecting back on the title, and I do apologize because I know when I begin to talk, I do go a little bit out there because I have so much to say. But why did the matter cease in the book of Joshua, my brothers and sisters? Why did the matter cease? Let me see if my computer going to act right. Nah, it's not going to. Okay, we got the mouse to move. Okay, it's not going to act right, but we're going to keep going. So in the first day of the week of the Most High calendar, remember the Most High calendar is determined by the heavens, not by the Gregorian calendar. Watch the era of the 1582, and I think it's 1752. I can't remember the second year. But on the channel, watch the video that talks about the era of the 1582, and I believe it's the 1752 era that the Israelites cannot dispute. And it is the concrete proof to show you why the Gregorian calendar cannot give you the correct days of the week, nor the correct days of the Most High holy days. That's one of the greatest errors, but it's many other errors, my brothers and sisters. Please watch that video. And also in the video description box, there's a playlist that talks about the missing days in the Gregorian calendar. And it's a playlist that talks about the Most High calendar to give you more understanding. So why did the manna cease in the book of Joshua on the first day of the week in the Most High calendar, which we know as the Aviv 16th? And the Aviv 16th is the day when we offer the sheep weight offering. Okay. That is the day when we bring the first fruits of the barley harvest. Remember, my brothers and sisters, I told you the carnal go in hand with the spiritual. And Aviv 16 is the second day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread when you're dealing with the 7 days. Remember, Passover starts on Aviv 14. That's a day separate unto itself. And then after that day pass, we keep a total of 7 more days for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Exodus chapter 12 will give you the total number, what I'm saying. So when you add 7 plus 1, you get a total of 8 days. Go back and read those scriptures. Exodus chapter 12, Leviticus chapter 23, Numbers chapter 28, and Deuteronomy chapter 16. And then when you get to the gospel, you will see the Messiah keeping Passover as instructed by Torah, because he did not break any law in Torah. That's a mystery that many Christians do not understand. However, the Pharisees did not keep Torah. They followed the customs and traditions of their forefathers. Okay, yes, this is how you have the Talmud come about. Josephus talks about the Pharisees, and he will let you know what I'm saying to you and confirm this. But let us keep going. So Aviv 16, let me see if this thing is going to act right now. Oh, sorry about that. It's not acting right. Let's see, can I get this thing to move up? Because I really want you to see this in color. It's still not going to act right, but we'll go with this on paper. Okay. So why did the manna cease when you read Joshua chapter 5, verse 12? Okay, here's the deep mystery. Remember I said the carnal go in hand with the spiritual. All these holy days and holy feast days are to teach us deep spiritual mysteries. Not only they would teach you about what the Messiah has done and what he will do, but it also teaches what we shall become, Israelites and Gentiles. Yes, it's a great mystery in this that many don't understand. There's a video on the channel that talks about why do we go from flat bread, known as unleavened bread, to risen bread, which is made with leaven, known as leavened bread. That's a mystery with that the Father was teaching you, Israelites and Gentiles, on what you shall become. Watch that. But here on the Aviv 15, which is the sheaf wave offering day, which is the first fruits of the body harvest that we offer unto the high priest, in which the high priest will offer it unto Yahuwah. Here is the day when the Messiah resurrected. And that remember what he said to his disciples. When he resurrected, he shall return back to his world. He shall return back into the heavens and sit on the right hand of his Father's throne. Okay? When you read John chapter 6, you will learn that the manna is the Messiah. He is the manna of heaven. Did he not come from heaven, Israelites and Gentiles? So he is that bread that should give you, that should cease your hunger. In other words, you were never hungry. Okay, this is why you would never go hungry, because he has that bread that should sustain your hunger. He has that bread that would give you life. That's why it's written in the Old Testament, Israelites, Gentile, and Christians, hint, hint, Christians, because y'all don't want to understand the old. This is why the Messiah said in Matthew chapter 4 and Luke chapter 4, because it's written in the Old Testament, that man shall not live by bread alone, but by the word that proceeded out of the mouth of Yahuwah. And when you understand who that bread is, because the Messiah is these words that we see on the paper, but these words that we see on the paper is a spirit. Who is that spirit? That is the word. Who is Torah? Who is Torah? I got to speak this out to the Christians now. Who is Torah? Who is that living word? It is the Messiah. This is why the Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, and Herodians could not twist him in his words, could not catch him in his words, could not deceive him, because he was that word that they was trying to study from the sacred scrolls that they did not understand. Goes deep. Okay. So let's go to the book of Joshua so you can read with me, and I hopefully this won't take long. I'm going to be real quick. So we go to Joshua chapter 5. Let me get some light over here. And we're going to start with verse 10. Joshua chapter 5, verse 10. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at evening in the plains of Jericho. Now, Christians, and also to Israelites and Gentiles, but especially to the Christians, what do the day we keep Passover? On Aviv 14th, which is the first month in the Most High calendar. And when do we start keeping it? At even. When you look this word up, it means starting at sundown. Okay. So we have them keeping the Passover in the days of Joshua when he brought the children of Israel. Okay. When he was the leader to lead them into the land of Israel, which is also known as the land of the Canaanites. On Aviv 14th, they kept Passover at sundown in the plains of Jericho. Now let's read verse 11. And they did eat of the old corn of the land. On the morrow, after the Passover, 11 cakes and parched corn in the same self day. So here it's giving us another day. In verse 11, it said they ate of the old corn of the land. What land is that talking about? They was in the land of Israel, in the land of the Canaanites. And on the morrow means the day after, tomorrow. That means tomorrow. It don't mean daylight. I had to make that clear because a lot of Israelites get confused with the phases of the day. Okay, but on the morrow means tomorrow. So Aviv 14th was the day before tomorrow. Aviv 15th was the morrow or tomorrow. Okay, so on Aviv 15th, after which is the day after the Passover, do you see how this aligned with the gospel? They ate 11 cakes and parched corn the same self day. Okay, something to think about here. See how I line up with the gospel? On the Passover day, the Messiah was crucified. The next day was a high holy day. It was also a Sabbath day too, because the reason why it was a high holy day, it fell on the holy convocation day as well. Aviv 15th, yeah. Okay. Now let's go to verse 12. And the manna ceased on the morrow. That's again, we see that word again. On the morrow, after they had eaten of the old corn of the land, not to have the children of Israel manna anymore, but they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. So what's the morrow after the Aviv 15th? Aviv 16th. That is the proof. Okay. And the Father want me to mention this because I'm going to have some Israelites that's going to challenge me. When they said, well, they ate 11 cakes. Remember, they prepared their food too. I'm sorry. Remember, I had to make a correction. When you study Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and you read Numbers 28, you will see the foods that they prepare on these days. Okay? Go back and study these offerings. Do you understand why they had unleavened cakes, which pertains to the Feast of Unleavened Bread? But you will see why they had this food on this day. Go back and read Numbers chapter 28, and I do apologize for that error. Okay? But when we look at verse 12, this is the proof to let you know this is Aviv 16th, and the manna ceased on this day. So the manna ceased on this day represent a great spiritual mystery that pertains to the Messiah. For what happened to the Messiah on Aviv 16th, my brothers and sisters? What happened? What happened? Let's go to John, the book of John, I believe it's in there. It's either the book of John or the book of Mark, but let me check Mark first. Let's go to the book of Mark because a lot of them want to dispute that Aviv 15 was not a Sabbath day, and also Aviv 15 was a holy convocation day. When you read Mark chapter 16, the summary of this chapter in the 1611 Bible says this: An angel declared the resurrection of the Messiah to three women. The Messiah himself appeared to Mary Magdalene, to two going into the country, then to the apostles whom he sendeth forth to preach the gospel, and ascendeth into heaven. And when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Salome had brought sweet spices that they might come and anoint him. This is the proof, this is the Sabbath, this is the proof, my brothers and sisters, that Aviv 15 was the Sabbath day, for it was a day of rest, and it was a holy convocation day. And you know what? We're going to go to Numbers 28 because a lot of y'all not understanding about these offerings. There was different offerings offered on these holy days that the Israelites feast upon. This is why we have to study the whole volume of the book. This is why you have in the days of Joshua them eating unleavened bread on Aviv 15 because it was the feast of unleavened bread. Okay. Verse 2. And very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. This verse you want to highlight, and it tells you to also read Luke chapter 24, verse 1, and John chapter 20, verse 1. Now, we're going to dissect this verse. It said very early in the morning. So we know this phase of the daylight phase, it took place in the morning, okay? And it said it was the first day of the week. What is the first day of the week, my brothers and sisters, in the Most High calendar? Okay? We just discussed it in this video at the beginning part. Aviv 16 is the first day of the week. And why is that the first day of the week? When you read in the Old and you read the work of Josephus, you will learn that Aviv 16 is the day when they brought the first fruits of the barley harvest, known as the sheaf wave offering. We had just read in the book of Joshua, which confirmed that the Aviv 16, this was the day when the manna ceased. And we just discussed that when the manna ceased, it represents what the Messiah shall do. Did he not return into his world? Did he not leave the earthly world and went into the heavens? Is he not the manna of heaven? Is he not that bread of life that returned unto his Father to sit on the right hand of his Father's throne? Now, this is really deep. So when we go back to verse 2, we see that the first day of the week is Aviv 16, and that's when these women are coming to the sepulchre or to his new tomb that he was buried in. Go back and read Matthew, you will see that. His body was placed in a different tomb, but his disciple came and got his body and placed him in a new tomb before the sun went completely down. Go back and read. I'm telling you, all these books have a piece to the puzzle. Okay, so looking back at verse 2, on Aviv 16, which was the first day of the week, they got to his tomb at the rising of the sun. This is very important. So when did the Messiah resurrected? When you study the phases of daylight and you go out and look at the heavens, my brothers and sisters, what is the first thing you see coming upon the sky after night? Light. So he risen in the dawn phase. So when did the women get to his tomb? They got to his tomb at the rising of the sun. So the Messiah had already resurrected. Okay. He resurrected in the dawn phase at that light that we see that takes place before the rising of the sun. This is why he fulfilled the prophecies of the 3 days and 3 nights of being in Sheol. Again, you cannot use your standards, man, to say what counts as a day or what counts as a night or what counts as a daylight. Because again, when you go back and review how when Moses entered to Mount Sinai, you will learn that he came on the mountain on the first daylight phase after the morning activities. He didn't start at the beginning of the light. He started after the light has passed. Okay. So we got to understand Yahuwah ways, his thoughts on what he counts. Okay. And remember, time is different from them. Very different. Okay. So when we look at the title again, why did the manna cease? We see here that it showed that this what would happen to the Messiah. When you read Leviticus chapter 16 and chapter 17, when we talked about the atonement offering, it represents what would take place with a lamb. One lamb, known as the scapegoat, would go into the wilderness, and the other lamb shall be sacrificed. Now, here's another mystery. Did this not take place did this not happen to the Messiah? Was he not crucified on the cross? Was he not the lamb that was given unto us for our sins? Okay. When you understand that, then you understand that he represent the sin offering and he represent the scapegoat offering, because after he resurrected, did he not escape from this world? Did he not leave this world? Did he not go into the wilderness of the heavens, which is paradise? Did he not tell the thief on the cross that he shall see him in paradise? This is why I tell you that you have to study about the three groups, because their characters are different. The bride of the Messiah, the 144,000, and the nation of Israel. Two of them will be redeemed from the earth. Okay? And they shall go into what? Paradise. But the others shall remain in the earth, for they have another part to play with the beasts. Okay? They will be in the wilderness. And after they go through the wilderness, then they should enter to the Holy Land. But they have another part to play with the beast. So when you read Romans chapter 11, then you begin to understand why the Father had mercy upon Israel. It goes deep. Okay? Let me see what else I have here. Let's see. So getting back to this lesson, now we see why the carnal go in hand with the spiritual. Now we understand why the matter ceased. Thank you, Father, for reminding me. He wants me to take you to 1 Corinthians chapter 5. When you get a chance, I want you to read this chapter, Israelites and Gentiles, and especially you Christians, because you don't understand a lot of things. For you've been indoctrinated by the fourth beast. You've been indoctrinated by the fourth beast church. They have been mixing the truth with lies. Read 1 Corinthians chapter 5. For the Bible summary say of this chapter, it says that the incestuous person is caused rather a shame unto them, then a rejoicing. The old leaven is to be purged out. Hedonists, forgive my tongue, offenders are to be shamed and avoided. So when you read this chapter, it's giving you more understanding about the leaven. What is the leaven that in us, Israelites, Gentiles, and Christians? What is that leaven? It is the doctrines and traditions of man that is in us. Okay? This is the season now we are in. We should purge those doctrines and traditions of man, such as not keeping Easter, such as not keeping Sunday worship, such as not keeping Christmas, Thanksgiving. These are all the holidays of man, and these are not the holy days of Yahuwah. That's what the Father's talking about. You need to start purging purging yourself that are of men. Remove those things that are the traditions and ways and philosophies and doctrines of men. Okay? Because he's preparing you what should take place in Pentecost, which is known as Shavuot. But the verse I want to read here is verse 7, okay, to verse 8. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even the Messiah, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. Now you want to highlight that. So he was slain for us. When you read it in the 1611, another way to read it, it said that For even the Messiah, our Passover, is slain for us. Is he not the sin offering? Is he not the scapegoat offering? Is he not the meat offering or the bread offering? Is he not the wine offering? Do you see now how you can keep Passover and the Feast of Leavened Bread, Israelites and Gentiles? He is all these offerings. He is the high priest in heaven. So when you don't have these things, you are still covered for those who receive the new covenant. For those who do not receive the new covenant, then you are under the judgment of the law because you reject the Messiah. You're not under the Messiah. You are under the judgment of the law. So you shall receive the damnation or the condemnation or what the law say you shall receive when you don't keep Passover perfectly or the Feast of Unleavened Bread. This is why the Father made a new covenant, a mystery that many do not understand, but let us keep going. Verse 8, there let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. What is the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth? What does it represent? When it represents the Messiah. Here's the mission that another thing that people understand. When you receive salvation, what does that mean? That means you receive the Messiah in your heart. And through him, through his spirit, he shall teach you all things. And he shall sustain your hunger, and you shall never go athirst. Is he not the fountains of many waters? When you study his name in Hebrew, you understand why he's that fountain of many waters. But he also is what the manna of heaven. You shall never go hungry. Really deep here. So here, notice here it said, let us keep the feast, not with old leaven. And you know, this is Paul writing to the Corinthians, Christians. They still kept it. Okay. So right here, when you look on the side note, it said, therefore, let us keep the holy day. Now, you know, with the I in the old English tongue, it can be I or Y, but it really say holy day. Therefore, let us keep the holy day not with old leaven, not with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the leavened bread of sincerity or truth. So when you receive the Messiah, you will follow his instructions, for he shall teach you how to keep Torah in the fourth beast kingdom. He shall show you those mysteries, okay, or how to keep it. Because of he who abide in us, this is why we are able to keep it perfectly. This is why we're able to cross every T and dot every I, not by our righteousness, but by his righteousness. And who is the righteousness of Yahuwah? The Messiah. Read Psalms 98 and Romans chapter 10. Another mystery that many do not understand. Okay, but when you get a chance, read this whole book. Another book I want you to read when you have some time. Thank you, Father, for reminding me that. Read Corinthians chapter 10. You're going to find some very interesting things about the Messiah. He was also in the old. Go back. He was in the days when the children of Israel came out of Egypt. He was there. So read that chapter as well. It says here, the summary of that chapter is the sacraments of the Jews. The sacraments of the Israelites are types of ours and their punishments. Example for us, we must fly from idolatry. We must not make Yahuwah's table the table of devils. And in things indifferent, we must have regard of our brethren. And the Father wanted me to mention this to you. There should be no buying and selling on these holy days. There should be no merchandise on these holy days to be sold. Okay? I'm hearing a lot of different things that's taking place. As much as we complain about what the Christians are doing, Israelites, we are following the same ways. Understand the mystery on why we don't buy and sell. Shalom, how you doing? Understand that mystery. The book of the prophet the book of the Apocrypha talks about it. Even in the gospel, it talks about money. Does not say money is the root of all evil. We have to understand why we should not buy and sell on these holy days. I'm just warning you, my brothers and sisters, because Yahuwah see this. We are still in the Babylonian ways. We are still in the Egyptian ways. So we have to remove the reproach of Egypt / Babylon off of us. That's another mystery we're dealing with, the circumcision. But that's another topic, another lesson for another day. Okay. And there's one more thing he want me to go over with you. I know I say I want to go to Numbers 28. So let's go to Numbers 28, because again, we don't understand what take place on these holy days and these offerings that take place, to understand why did the Israelite on Aviv 15th, which is a day of rest, and a holy convocation day, why they had 11 cakes. It's the instructions from Yahuwah. He said you should have 11 cakes. You should eat 11 cakes for 7 more days after the Passover. So now let's go to Numbers 28. Okay, we're getting there. Numbers 28. Let me get some light over here. Starting at verse 16. And in the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of Yahuwah. So we know the 14 days the Passover. Okay, verse 17. And in the 15th day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten. So that's the proof. 7 days starts from the 15th. So the 15th day of Aviv is the first day of the 7 days of the feast of unleavened bread. And the 16th would be the 17th day. Would be the 7th day. And here's the proof on the counter so you can see. So we know Aviv 16 is the second day of the 7 days of the feast of unleavened bread. Let me get some light over here so you can see. Therefore, on the 21st day, which is a holy convocation day, a day of rest, would be the 7th day of the feast of unleavened bread. That falls on the 21st day of the moon. But remember, his calendar is made of what? The sun, the moon, and Mazzaroth. The moon gives you the days of the month, but the sun lets you know when the day begin to end, and the sun works with Mazzaroth to let you know when the season begin to end. You cannot separate these 3 lights. I see many errors in many Israelites' calendars where they don't have these 3 lights. Okay? And on this day, the day of the sun, for this year, it falls in the sun's 2nd month and 7th day. Okay, now let's go back. So we already talked about let's talk about verse 17 again. Let's put the light back over here. And in the 15th day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten. So now we see why the children of Israel had unleavened bread that day on the 15th when they was in the land of Canaan. Okay. The land of Israel. Verse 18. And in the first day shall be an holy convocation. Ye shall do no manner of servile work therein. So what is the first day of the 7 days? Aviv 15. Let's go back to the calendar because I want you to see this. Aviv 15 should be the first day, and it's a holy convocation day. And on the calendar, this is why I put HCD. Do you see how everything lined up? This is a day when the Israelites came out of Egypt. They came out at night. This is the 45th day when Moses dealt with Pharaoh, which represents to be delivered, to be exodus, to be redeemed, to be set free. Do you see where I'm going? This is the day when Yahuwah rescued his sheep out of the pit. And if you notice, who else came out with the Israelites? The Gentiles. What's done in the old shall be done in the new. Let us keep going. Now we're going to read verse 19. Okay, so we just learned that Aviv 15 is a holy convocation day. That's no day you do no work. And this is how we get to the understanding why Aviv 16 is the day of the first fruits of the barley harvest, known as the sheep red offering. But ye shall offer a sacrifice made by fire for a burnt offering unto Yahuwah 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, 7 lambs of the first year, and they shall be unto you without blemish. Let me put some light over here. Do you see that? So these are the lists of the meat offerings that's offered on these days. We got to offer on these 7 days, Aviv 15th to Aviv 21st. Okay. Okay. Verse 20. And one goat for a sin offering to make an atonement for you. Again, the Messiah represent all these offerings, my brothers and sisters. So if you can't do it, you're covered. And you have to understand who can do these offerings. Again, remember, Yahuwah took already these sacred and holy things from us. Our high priest is in heaven. So we just keep up more of these things because we know the day is to come in the new eternal kingdom. We shall keep these things. Read the prophets' writings. Ezekiel talks about this. Isaiah, all the prophets. Go back and see. Even Zechariah talks about some of these things. We're going to keep these holy days. Okay. Verse 23, and ye shall offer these beside the burnt offering in the morning. Okay, so we're going to offer this offering beside the burnt offering, which is the continued burnt offering. Do you know what that is, my brother and sister? That's the daily sacrifice that had to be done every day. It was done in the morning and done in the evening. Okay, go back and read. Numbers 28 will break it down. And also read Leviticus 23. Okay, so these offerings was offered beside the burnt offering. I'm trying to find where my place is. Okay, that was verse 23. Now, verse 24, after this manner ye shall offer daily throughout the 7 days the meat of sacrifice made by fire of a sweet savor unto Yahuwah. It shall be offered beside the continual burnt offering and his drink offering. Do you see this? So we had to do this for 7 days from Aviv 15th to Aviv 21st. Now, I know you can't not do this in the fourth beast kingdom, my brothers and sisters, but this is why I keep telling you that those who receive the new covenant, you are covered. Messiah got you. He just wants you to keep a memorial. Pull your Bibles out. Study these things because this will take place in the new eternal kingdom. And I agree. Con, sister. Okay. Now let's look at verse. Let me see where I'm at. Okay, I'm on verse 25. And on the 7th day, ye shall have a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work. So right here, we end on verse 25. It said, on the 7th day, ye shall have a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work. So that 7th day that it's talking about, let's go back to the calendar. Let me first review right quick. I got to say this again. We just read from those scriptures that Aviv 15 is a holy convocation day. And it's a Sabbath day. That's why it's a high holy day. Okay. Notice that Aviv 14 is not a day of rest. Go back and study. You see it. It's from the old to the new. Look at what the Messiah do. Okay. Now we just read verse 25, and verse 25 said that the 7th day is a holy convocation day, that we should do no servile work. And what's that 7th day is talking about? Aviv 21st. That's the 7th day, a holy convocation day. So just to sum this up, Aviv 14 is Passover day. It's a separate day. Okay. Then we have the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And I know in sources, when you read Josephus and the Bible, it would classify the Passover day with the 7 days and call it the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But when we go and study these offerings, you would notice there's a difference. Okay. There's different things that take place on the Aviv 14th, what is offered. Okay. Then on Aviv 15th, we have what? A holy convocation day. It is the day of rest. But on that day, in addition, we have additional offerings that needs to be done. In other words, we have a feast. We have a menu for the feast that takes place for 7 days. So when we get to the 21st day, he ends it. Yahuwah himself ends that day with a day of rest, with those offerings that we just read from Numbers 28. And this is the last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is a holy convocation day. So this year, it falls in the sun's 2nd month and 7th day. It falls on the 21st day of the moon. And on the heathen calendar, it falls on April the 26th to April the 27th from sundown to sundown. Watch the Numeral report where you can see, all the things that pertains to the calendar. The calendar is free unto you, my brothers and sisters. I do not charge. You can go and print this out. I found out, depending on what type of printer you have, you can print the calendar out. Like you can print 2 pages on the same page. That way you can have and see it better. Depending what kind of printer you have. I know the library is very helpful with that. So you can print this out, or you can pull this up on your mobile device and take a look at it. It's free. Okay. Check the video description box to click on the calendar so you have access. But now you begin to see how the calendar go hand with the spiritual. Let me see that comment. Passover is separate from your, yes, it is. But when you read like the gospel or the work of Josephus, what you will learn about what our people will often do, they will include the Passover and just say the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But those who study Torah know what that means. We know it's a total of 8 days. Okay. So you would see that in the gospel. You would also see that in the work of Josephus. So I mentioned that so my brothers and sisters would not get confused. But those who study Torah has the understanding it's a total of 8 days. Because even on the Passover day, we have unleavened bread. Okay. But to remove the leaven in your house starts on the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is Aviv 15. Go back and study Torah. I could say Exodus chapter 12, Leviticus 23, Deuteronomy 16, and Numbers chapter 28. Okay. So I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. Oh, one more thing. Please read my sister Vision of Heaven. Sister Cassandra, she have it on Facebook, and I do have it in Google Documents, and I will put that link in the video description box. So come back to this video to get that. But remember, my sister was not fully awakened to who she was as an Israelite. So please don't get petty when she used certain words. Okay. The Father wants you to understand the message. Okay. Because there's a greater reward for those who come in now, who come in by faith. And that's evident through the whole volume of the book. Look at our father Abraham, who is the father. Look at our father Abraham and Sarah, who is the father and the mother of the faithful. Okay. So it's a greater reward for you on that. Let me see if there's anything else I need to say. And this is why the Messiah would say there'll be those who will call great in the kingdom, and there'll be those who call least in the kingdom in Matthew chapter 5. All right. I think I done said enough. Make sure, my brothers and sisters, y'all continue to preach the gospel that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, for it's truly at hand. For we are in the 7th day from Adam, which is the 12,000 year from creation, which is confirmed by the Apocrypha in Ezra chapter 7, 2nd Ezra chapter 7. This is the season that the Messiah shall return. We should know the season of his coming, but we should not know the day and hour of his coming. Okay. Make sure the people receive salvation as written in Romans chapter 10 and baptize them in the water and also in the Holy Spirit baptism. For the Lamb set the example of those 2 baptisms, and the apostles continued to both. A mystery that many of the today Pharisees, Sadducees, Herodians do not understand today. All right. Love you all. Shalom. And shalom means peace. And do you know what that peace is or who that peace is? Study the Hebrew letters that's listed in Psalms 119. Read Matthew chapter 28, verse 20, Luke chapter 24, verse 36, and Matthew chapter 10, verse 12 to 13. Shalom.